Why did the blue screen feel right at home with Eclipse Protocol? Because it finally found a build that could keep up with its status effects. Haha, DAG joke of the day. What is up, DAGs and DAGettes? I have another build today, a status effect monster that delivers a constant stream of status effects, crowd controlling the enemies to death while simultaneously amplifying the damage you do and your teammates do. We got burns, we got disrupts, we got disoriented, we got bleed, constant pulses going out everywhere. This build is a whole lot of fun and is super effective in missions, open world. This is probably my favorite support build that I ever put together thanks to the rogue momentum burden of truth modifiers. You're going to deal insane amount of status effect damage thanks to the biomass, stacking with bleed damage and burn damage, which is going to get amplified by 70% from 3 different amplifying damage sources. If I didn't say it yet, this build is definitely a beast and it's super easy to play. If you're new to the channel, welcome to d.a.g Gaming. I'm your host NOX'S, where my favorite thing to do is respawn. This build is super toxic to the enemies and I'm excited to get right into it. Starting with the specialization, I'm running the sharpshooter to give me access to the technician drone, 10% headshot damage boost to your allies. We're going to get some stability and target requisitioning and some headshot damage to the rifle. We're going to be using the everlasting gaze. For the primary, I'm using the blue screen. I have it with damage to armor. It has the talent disruptor round, which applies various different status effects and a pulse, which combos really well with our modifiers. And these are the modifiers that come with the blue screen that you cannot change. For the secondary, I'm using the named rifle everlasting gaze with the damage to target out of cover. And it comes with the talent perfect perpetuation, which boosts your status effects damage and durations. And these are the mods I am running for it. I am mainly using this rifle for the talent. So every 16 seconds, I'm going to switch to it, get a headshot, wait for a status effect to go off, and go back to the blue screen. For the sidearm, it can be whatever you like. I have the d.a.g card custom for a placeholder. It does give me the +1 skill tier, and I have the talent preservation just in case I need some armor real quick. For my first armor piece, I have the exotic biomass with a armor on kill armor mod. It comes with the talent toxic delivery, which is a separate debuff that lasts 10 seconds, and unlike other debuffs, this debuff is affected by status effects. For the chest, I have China Light with status effect and armor regen and an armor on kill armor mod, and I'm using the talent glass cannon to boost all those status effects damage up, and the 15% explosion damage is going to boost the vials debuff damage. If the RNG gods would smile upon me, I would switch the core to a red, because with this build you do not need skill tiers. And for the other 4 armor pieces, I have Eclipse Protocol, all statted the same with the red core and the attribute status effect. With the exception for the backpack, I have an armor on kill armor mod, and you are going to want to run the backpack because you unlock the talent sympathy aggravator, which gives you 30% amplified damage. For the first skill, I have the technician drone thanks to the sharpshooter specialization. This thing is going to constantly pulse, triggering the microwave coils passive mod, and when this thing is overcharged, it's going to get a massive boost to the range. Also, when you're overcharged, it's going to apply weakness exploit, which is yet again another amplified damage source that benefits yourself and your allies. And those are the mods that I have for it. For the second skill, you can put whichever one you prefer, as there are multiple great choices for this build. I just find that Stinger Hive works the best because you can drop the Stinger Hive to trigger the blue screen, allowing you to apply all the blue screen status effects on command. And also the Stinger Hive does do a lot of damage, and when you're overcharged, the Stinger Hive gets some insane buffs, notably the 300% skill haste, allowing it to fully recharge super fast, and it goes nicely with the China Light chest piece with glass cannon. And these are the mods that I have for it. I also use the burn sticky bomb because when it's overcharged, it gets an insane 500% skill haste, putting this thing down to like a 7-second cooldown. And those are the mods that I rock for it. You can also use the airburst seeker mine, and when it's overcharged, it gets some insane buff as well. The only downside is the range is pretty short, so it doesn't work too well for control points or more open missions. You can also use the fire starter chem launcher. It does get some crazy buffs as well. For the active modifier, you can use whatever you like. They don't really matter. They'll have minimum impact on your builds. Just keep in mind, if you do use overdrive, you'll have 70% momentum for 150 seconds. And this build highly relies on having maximum momentum to boost your skills to overdrive. For the first passive modifier, I have microwave coils. This thing's going to apply burns to newly pulsed enemies and and give you a bunch of momentum. Reaper Scan to apply the blacklisted mark, because when you kill a blacklisted marked enemy, you get a 15-second buff that gives you 10% critical hit chance and 10% weapon handling. And lastly, you have Momentum Surge. The stats are kind of sad because this isn't primarily a weapon damage dealing type of build, but we'll get to 20% after we kill a blacklisted enemy, and we'll do a little bit more weapon damage with 45% critical hit damage. And the 55,000 armor on kill is going to help us stay alive, as this will be the only sustain that's on this build. For the attributes, I'm sitting at 4 reds and 2 yellows, no blue cores. Ideally, like I said before, I would want the China Light to be a red core as well, but the RNG goddess has not smiled upon me yet for this specific piece. So the gist of this build is pretty much run around and spread chaos to the enemies. Your drone is going to constantly pulse, and microwave coils is going to constantly apply burns, and those burns are going to spread thanks to Eclipse Protocol. And each time one of those burns goes off, your Vile Mask goes off as well. I'm going to constantly use the Everlasting Gaze to boost my status effect damage and duration as well. And the blue screen is going to cause even more chaos by applying even more status effects and additional pulse source. You got your skills that are going to be overcharged, dealing more damage and having higher skill haste, so you can use them more often. This build gets super nutty. You can literally run around the map, set people on fire that you would never even plan on killing. They'll die, give you more XP. If you take this build into hard or challenging, it's a wrap. It's easy mode. You're just going to kill everything without even trying. Just being there with your drone out is just going to clear out everything on challenging and hard. They'll do the same thing in heroic, with the exception of Chongas, because on heroic, them Chongas have more resistances to status effects. So you're going to rely on those red cores to boost your weapon damage so you can take up the Chongas. Chongas are definitely going to be the biggest weakness to this build, especially if they're frenzied and get that 10% armor regen. But if you're playing solo on heroic, you won't have an issue because you'll have enough weapon damage to take them out. Just won't be as fast as somebody with a actual weapon damage build. And if you're playing in a group, you'll have plenty of meat shields to take care of the Chongas. I mean, you'll have plenty of agents to take care of the Chongas. And with this build, it's even good against Black Tusk, thanks to the disrupt that the blue screen gives. You can just shoot the dogs with the blue screen and drop your hive to trigger it, or use a skill to trigger it, and they'll get disrupted. And you'll be easily to gun down the warhounds or their tracks before they start shooting at you or scurry away. And the disrupt from the blue screen is really good for shutting down engineers or drone operators or anybody else who has a skill from using those skills. This build is definitely the enemy's Toxic X. It's gonna have them scrambling and flailing their arms as they burn and tick away while you're safely sitting behind cover. That's about it for my 2 cents about this build. So let's head over to the shooting range, because I know you all love to see those big floaty damage numbers. So when I do in the beginning of an encounter, if I don't have my drone out, I'll shoot an enemy in the head, and you'll see that the talent pops up on the bottom. I'll pull out my drone, and when it goes off, I'll get some momentum. Everything starts burning and dying, and I'll switch over to the blue screen because you get the damage to armor and damage target out of cover, so all those ticks are going to do even more damage. And the drone is going to constantly pulse and set people on fire. After 16 seconds, pull out the Everlasting Gaze, get another headshot, and then once it goes off, boom, you're going to do 75% more damage, and it'll last 75% longer. Switch to the blue screen, do even more damage now. You can even start shooting enemies, and you can see that the disruptor rounds are building up. You can shoot a bunch of different enemies, and I'll drop my Stinger Hive. Then it'll proc all of those status effects. And when I'm overcharged, I'll actually throw out my Stinger Hive, let it do its thing. Its range is massive, and it does a crap ton of damage. As you saw, it just cleared everything on heroic. And the other skill that I use is the Sticky Burn, because this thing does some massive burn damage. The Sticky Burn is devastating against control points because the enemies are usually close together, and you're able to just take everybody out with one Sticky Burn. And if the next wave comes out before the last enemy dies, those new enemies will catch on fire as well. You don't really have to do a lot with this build. It's pretty much autopilot. You're going to lean heavily on the drone just to apply those pulses and set enemies on fire. And because it has such a large range when you're overcharged, you're definitely not going to have an issue constantly getting momentum when you set enemies enemies on fire. This build is super nutty and super easy to play and super fun. It's as easy as just running around the map and killing stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed my Eclipse Protocol build for the new season. Burden of Truth with the Rogue Momentum modifiers. I'm definitely interested in seeing other variations of this build. And if you're subscribed, thank you for subscribing. If you're not yet subscribed, please take a moment to subscribe. That way you can stay up to date for my upcoming videos. And I want to say thank you to everybody supporting my new small channel. You guys are awesome. That's all for now, and I'll catch you at the next one.